Welcome to 516 Project Word on Wednesday, or sometimes Thursday. Sometimes these come out on Thursday too. And so I'm just hoping that you guys had a great new year. I know there's some crazy storms that's passed through. I love to see, though, 516 Project is always out there helping people not feel abandoned or be abandoned, cutting down trees in the midst of this storm. Like give it up, man. Because this is a big deal. I love seeing people being the hands and feet of Jesus, and the way that we are just caring for one another, caring for the community. It just brings a big light to who Jesus is. You know, when we do things like this, it points to not just ourselves, but honestly, it points to Jesus. And I think that's the way that we are supposed to live in life, pointing people every day to Jesus by what we do. And so we get this awesome opportunity during storms like this to be able to point people to Jesus by the way that we work and live, and in our actions, and even in the way that we talk too. And so it's awesome to see us do that. Last year, we went through a series called Make Way for the King as we studied John chapter 1 through 5. And so this year, we're going to study John chapter 6 through 11. And we've titled the series The Way. And I think the purpose of this series is to help us to know the way that we should go. I mean, Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, and the only way to get to the Father is through me. And so we want to make sure that we're pointing people to the Father, and the only way they can get eternal life, or the only way they can get heaven, is through Jesus. And so we'll be looking at chapter 6. John writes specifically in his gospel, which is his perspective. If you're new to the Bible, or even to the 516 devotionals, gospel just means good news, and it's the good news about Jesus. But each one has their own perspective. There's 4: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And John's perspective, he gives it in John 20:30, where he says, Jesus did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And so this is why he writes. Now, what we're going to study today is mostly everyone, I believe, knows about this awesome miracle. I mean, even if you're not in church, even if you are not a Christian, this miracle has been told before, and it's the miracle of the 5,000. So even if are feeding the 5,000, so even if you haven't grown in the church, like you've in some ways might have heard this miracle. And so we're going to look at John chapter 6, and your big idea is going to be this: there's no other way that provides like Yahweh. There's no other way that provides like Yahweh. One of the things I love about this miracle is you can find it in all 4 Gospels. There's only 2 miracles that you can find in all 4 Gospels. One, it's the resurrection, and then it's this one. And so you can see the importance this is, or the impact that this made on 3 of the disciples, and also an eyewitness. But let's look at it. John chapter 6, let's dive deep. So starting in verse 1, it says, sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw signs he had performed by healing the sick. And it says, then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said, Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? And he asked this on to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. And so when I look at even just these 5 verses that I read, immediately what I see is Jesus' compassion. Like, you immediately can follow Jesus' compassion. One of the other gospels says that he's been teaching the crowd all day. He's been around them all day. He's been doing things all day with them. And yet he still thinks about their hunger. He still thinks about them getting food. And so he proposes to Philip, how are we going to get them food? And you would think the disciples, they've been around Jesus for a long time. They've seen a lot of the miracles that he's done, even the water to wine. And yet they have a hard time figuring out, how are they going to get food? And it says that Jesus asked them, but he already had in mind what he was going to do. It seems like Jesus is bringing them along with him, that he's discipling them, that he's teaching them on how to care for people. And so he's wanting to hear back from them. And so Philip answered, "It will take more than a half year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Andrew's so cute. Like, he is willing, like, he's like, okay, Jesus, like, how are you going to feed all these people? And Andrew's like, well, there's this little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. And you got to think, like, yes, it says there's 5,000, but there's 5,000 men. So this is not even including the women and the children that are involved. I think it comes up to about 20 to 25,000 people that needed to be fed, that Jesus wanted to feed. And so those five loaves of bread were not loaves like loaves that we see today. They were more like pita bread, so 5 pita breads, think that way. And then the 2 fish were not like massive fish, they were more like sardines. And so this is a little boy's lunch. He has 5 pita breads, 2 fish, and Andrew's like, hey, we got these, and we could probably chop them up into little pieces to try to feed everyone. They have not quite they don't quite understand what God is willing and wanting to do in people's hearts. And so it says in verse 10, Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." And there was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Remember, 20 to 25,000, including men and women, or women and children. And so what's also interesting too is you see, like, he tasks the disciples to get them ready, to sit them down. And then he's going to task the disciples to pass out the food. And so he's just discipling them. He's showing them how to really care for people. But verse 11 says, Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish, which they had all had enough to eat. And he said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted. I would have loved to see that miracle, y'all. Like, I would have loved to have been there. I would have loved to see, I still don't understand, like, where does the loaves and fish come from? Like, are they coming from the sky or from his hands? Or, like, how are they multiplying this way? But Jesus, in some way, he's multiplying it. And what it teaches me, just in these first 10 verses here, or first 11 verses, is that Jesus provides a way when there seems to be no way. Like, Jesus is providing a way when there seems to be no way. He's healing people that are sick before this. People are starving and there's no food. And so he's willing to provide a way where there seems to be no way. You can probably hear my daughter in the background. She's hanging out with me today. And so please excuse her. Love on her, y'all. It says, this miracle is also pointing to Jesus being the one that made way for people in the Old Testament. So this miracle is also showing people about Jesus even in the Old Testament. You see Adam and Eve notices their nakedness. The way is the one that provides clothes for them. Right? Abraham and Sarah are too old to have kids. The way provides kids. There's no way out of Egypt for Moses. The way provides a way. Fire by night, cloud by day. Right? Death needs to be defeated. Jesus provides a way. Jesus is always providing a way for us. But then not only that, God provides way more than what we need. He provides way more than what we need. Right? Like it says, when they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and they filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. They ate however much they wanted. They ate however much they wanted to eat. Like, it wasn't like, hey, you can only have, like, you know, like when you have big parties and and like you have only like 3 boxes of pizza or something like that, and you're like, everybody can have only 2. Like, it wasn't that for them. Like, God was providing way more than they needed. Like, he cared for them in every aspect of their life. Like, he doesn't ignore your pain. He doesn't ignore your hunger or your hurts or when you're tired or when you're struggling. But a lot of times in life, we can find ourselves choosing another way that leads to death, or that continues in our pain and continue in our hunger. And we should always seek the way that the Lord wants us to go, because he will provide way more than we need. And so my challenge for you today is to trust in Jesus, to put your faith in him, to let him provide in ways that you've never seen him provide. But when he provides, man, it's a good way for you to also provide for people. And so that's my challenge for you as well, is that when God provides to you, that you will be providing to other people that are in need. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this day. God, thank you so much for everything that you do for us. Lord, thank you for your word, and thank you for always providing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.